Okay. Color me very, very interested. One Piece chapter 1072. So let me get this straight. So when Vegapunk was telling Bonney, like, hey, I cannot tell you the truth about what happened with your father would kill me, he was actually being genuine. For a second, I was thinking that, he's just saying this stuff in order to try and save his own ass. That's kind of the vibe I was getting. I was not expecting Oda to potentially be setting up a real heartbreaker of a story for Kuma, because you can tell, like, the way that Bonney was shown just walking up to that paw print and the idea that it's his memories inside of it, and you got Kuma just going wild right now when all this stuff is going on. Oda is about to rip our hearts out. That much is obvious. The only question, though, is what role does Bonney have to play in this? Because it's one of those things where we've met Bonney before, and Bonnie's a cool character, but she hasn't necessarily done anything to warrant to have this much potential emotional investment coming in. So if this ends up being deep, either Bonney is very important or Kuma is very important. There's no in between on that. So the chapter itself opens up, last one left off, where you got Bonney and she's continuing with her assault on Vegapunk, and for a moment she catches him off guard by acting like a small child that is crying, and Vegapunk is checking on her, and then all of a sudden she resizes, comes up, bops this dude over the head, and Vegapunk is trying to get her to see reason. Bonnie's weapon ends up aging him down in years, and she's telling him, I want to know the truth. You said you got a good reason for why you did the things you did to my father, for why you killed my father. I want answers. And she's got those tears in her eyes as she's speaking, and you can see the vein that is popping up on her forehead. And I do think that she is justified in wanting to know the truth, because at the end of the day, that is her parent, and it's implied that her and her father were very close. So I can kind of understand that you want closure, even if you find out like your father was a POS. It's one of those things where you need that information so you can close the book on it. This is a heavy weight for her character, so I can kind of understand that. But what's interesting here is that over in the red port, as you got Kuma doing the stuff he's doing, you got Vegapunk trying to tell her, like, look, like, I made a promise to your father. Your father was a friend of mine, that I would never tell you the truth because it will only hurt you. Your father does not want you to know. And it's one of those things where you can tell whatever it is, it's completely twisted and messed up. And it's something that Kuma as a father wants to try and spare his child from. And it really reminds me of what was really adamant when you go back to Dressrosa, and how Rebecca's father was kind of taking a similar stance there, trying to protect her. And it's been a constant theme throughout the New World, which is that parents are trying to protect the dreams of their children, trying to protect the innocence of their children, because those dreams and those innocence are what allow those kids to transcend beyond the foulness of the world that the world government has shaped forward. So I do want to know now. Again, I'm just curious to see how it's going to either impact Bonney or how it's going to impact Kuma as a character. But what I like about this is that Vegapunk also, by extension, is getting some characterization, because he's saying, like, what happened to your father is something that I don't even want to remember myself. It's just that foul. Your father, he was a great man, and this is what I'm trying to tell you, to please don't press the issue any further. And what ends up happening is she ends up going into another section of the lab. It says caution on the door, so obviously she proceeds to break all caution. She sees this floating paw print, and she knows right away that it's something different. And Vegapunk tries to bluff. He tries to say, like, you know that your father takes pain and is able to store it elsewhere. Well, if you touch that, it can be lethal. You know your father's power better than anyone else. And she specifically says, you're right. I know my father's power better than anyone. And this isn't pain. This is a memory. And what I like here is that we see how, as Vegapunk is watching her and trying to talk her out of it, we get the flashback. And Vegapunk says some stuff I find interesting. He talks about how the soul actually exists because when people die, they lose 21 grams of their weight when they actually pass away. I don't know if he's like referring to fluids, but if he's not referring to fluids and there's something else that people lose when they die, I think that's pretty cool. Like, Oda don't just write stuff for random like that, so I don't think that that is like completely fictionalized. I'm gonna actually look that up when we get done with this review, because now I'm actually curious, because like Vegapunk actually has me thinking on that, because I've always thought of the soul as being something that just like transcends the body. It's not anything that you can actually measure, but you know, if there's something like that out there, that would be very good in terms of like philosophical debates. So the next thing we see here is that Vegapunk is talking to him. He's like, well, your powers, they take pain, supposedly an invisible thing, and you take it and you place it onto others. Well, we can do the same thing with memories. Mental images, memories, those are signals emitted from neurons, which there's science back behind that. So I do like that you see that. And Kuma's like, why would I do something like that to help you with your experiments, simply because it will just embarrass me? And Vegapunk's like, no, dude, like just imagine the good that we can do with this. Like pretty, please. And you can tell that he is completely enamored with everything that is potentially possible with this. Because like if you can find a way to not only digitize memories, but also give weight to memories, it becomes one of those things where you look at it and you can completely transcend reality in of itself, because nobody actually dies at that point, because the memories, they have a physical representation to live on through. So I thought that was kind of interesting to see that. Now, the next thing we get here is as Kuma is doing his damage at the red port, and as Bonney is looking like she's about to get into those memories and touch them, we get the update with Nami and the other Straw Hats are freaking out because Zoro and Brook, they're battling against Kaku. However, CP0, they've begun their counterattack. The Seraphim have begun making their counterattack. And for a moment, Dr. Vegapunk's clones are going, well, that works for us, because the moment they get up here, if they can hear our voices, we supersede CP0. They only have the authority chip. We can get them back on our control. And I like that Oda confirmed something from the last couple of chapters, which is that the Seraphim do have their own personalities. They do have their own whim. And so it's one of those things where, because they can decide like that, the world government does have a problem on their hands. However, I do like, again, the order structure that we have with how the Seraphim work, where it's the authority chip with CP0, it's Sentomaru, it's Vegapunk and all Vegapunk's clones, and then you got the 5 elders. Now you see why they want to go ahead and just wipe out Vegapunk, because number one is research, but also with something like this, you don't need someone that can actually usurp your authority, because if you get rid of Sentomaru and you get rid of Vegapunk, it's just CP0 and the 5 elders. CP0 would never try anything with the 5 elders. So I do like that you see that. And like Nami is just like saying, hey, yo, it's about to be 7-on-2. Get your ass down there and help. And Sanji's like, oh man, it really sucks for Zoro. This dude ain't gonna be able to see the One Piece, and we're just so close to it. And Nami's like, get your ass out there. And Sanji, being the simp he is, it's like the Sanji film. Like, it's one of those things, like, Sanji is so unserious that you can't take him serious, and yet at the same time, you know that in his heart he believes the shit that he is saying. Like, this is the stuff where I have a love-hate relationship with Sanji, because like, on one hand, the perverted gag is funny. On the other hand, it's like, after Whole Cake Island and the growth we saw with Pudding, I'm like, dog, man, like, I don't know if I can just take you being a simp this serious, because Whole Cake Island had some very real growth for the character. I kind of feel like seeing scenes like this actually regresses Sanji a little bit. I know he's there for a comedic role, but I'm starting to get a little tired of that after Whole Cake Island. It might just be me, though. Now, after we see Zoro battling against Kaku and Zoro's begin to start getting annoyed, that's where we get the big reveal where you have Stussy and she says like, hey, I just put him to sleep. And we find out that this is actually a clone of Miss Buckingham Stussy, who is a member of the Rocks Pirates. And basically she says like, hey, Rob Lucci, I'm asking you to do the same. And so I am curious to see how Oda is going to take this plot twist to Stussy, because I didn't see this one coming. I really didn't see this one coming right here. So my chapter question to you guys is, what were you most interested in when you got to this point? Was it the potential Vegapunk and Kuma relationship and Bonney getting those memories? Or were you more interested in the battles that were taking place? But so always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.